daytime temperature not being that bad, the sun blasting down without mercy made it feel so much worse. On one such day for shearing, Belgrieve sat in the yard at Carrie's house, looking after the small children. He held a baby in his arms while he watched toddlers draw on the ground, taking occasional glances at the shearing work being carried out over yonder. There were plenty of houses that kept sheep, but none had nearly as many as Carrie. He hired several villages around this time of year, and the shearing would always become a lively event. Once that was over, next came the carding, the yarn spinning, and then the knitting. With specialized shearing scissors, even the experienced shearers took 40 to 50 minutes per head, and the inexperienced ones could take twice that. The seasoned hands would teach by example before putting the younger ones up to it, but there was always a ruckus every year about how one of the sheep escaped, or how another was hurt by mistake. By the time these young ones could pull it off without error, it would be time for the next generation of kids to learn shearing. Belgrieve had participated up to a few years ago, but lately he found himself looking after the children. The village youths were hard at work, while their mothers were busy helping with making lunch and washing the sheared wool. Belgrieve was strangely well liked by children, and a majority of the villagers felt that he's leaving the job to him. Thus, this duty naturally fell to him. When the baby began crying, Belgrieve slipped a hand under his shirt, sticking his thumb out in a gap between the buttons. The child giggled and gleefully suckled on it. Belgrieve was well used to this. As he was watching over the children, a stocky man came up to him. The man was dressed like an adventurer and carried a battle axe in his hands. His brown hair was beginning to thin, but his beard was growing thick as though to compensate. The man narrowed his sociable eyes, smiling as he spoke to Belgrieve. "That's the Bell I know. Even a baby is no match for you." "Glad to see you back, Duncan. How was it today?" "Same as usual, but I must say, I was shocked by the skill of this village's youths. They must have quite the master." "What are you saying? Good grief." Belgrieve stood with a wry smile and handed the baby off to Duncan. "Can you take over for a bit? I'm thirsty." "Hmm?" The baby burst into tears the moment it was in Duncan's hands. Duncan frantically tried to soothe the child, but this only made it cry harder, creating even more of a mess. "Wait, Belle, what do I do about this?" "Just wait a second." Belgrieve rushed into the kitchen, slipping between the women busily preparing lunch, and gulped down a ladle full of water. When he returned, the children were crowded around Duncan, clambering up his shoulders and back. His stocky build was, evidently, quite easy to scale. "Look who's popular." I'm not used to this." Duncan looked utterly confused as they played tug-of-war with his beard. Belgrieve chuckled and took the crying baby from his arms. It immediately calmed down the moment it was in his embrace. Around 2 months had gone by since Belgrieve had returned from Bordeaux. The snow in Turnera had completely melted while he was away, and the fresh green wheat was golden before he knew it. Shockingly, Duncan had been the first to welcome him back. Duncan was an adventurer who traveled the land searching for strong foes to spar with. After hearing a rumor about a certain red ogre, he made the trek all the way to Turnera, only to fail to recognize Belgrieve in the town of Rodina along the way. Upon arriving in Turnera and learning Belgrieve was absent, Duncan decided to await his return instead of leaving. During that time, he helped with some of the jobs around the village and taught the youths some of the basics of combat. With his open personality, he had blended into Turnera in no time at all. Belgrieve had apologized for playing dumb in Rodina, but Duncan did not seem to mind. He insisted that, had they fought in Rodina, he would never have come to Turnera. He even thanked Belgrieve for it, as he had taken quite a liking to the village. Duncan's visit during Belgrieve's absence had actually been quite beneficial. The maintenance of the roads was put off, so naturally the villagers were disappointed. But a more pressing matter had emerged, preventing the delay from causing too much of an uproar. This issue took the form of an outbreak of weak fiends ranging from E to D rank. Although low-ranking, these fiends were still a threat to civilians. The village youths could handle swords and had sturdy bodies to match, but they lacked real combat experience. Casualties would have been unavoidable for as long as they remained greenhorns. That was when the wandering adventurer showed his stuff. He did not simply exterminate them on his own. He gathered volunteers that Belgrieve had trained in the sword and directed them against the fiendish foes. In hardly any time at all, the young men and women figured out how to apply